We mostly read stories about weak losers and runts who die and get reincarnated, only to become overpowered powerhouses later on. But this story is about a king who had plenty of achievements under his belt before he died. The reason behind his death remains a mystery. But after his death, he opens his eyes as a baby. And contrary to the lavish room fit for a king that he'd expect, he wakes up in a humble home. His mother's name is Alice, a kind-hearted woman, and his father is Reynolds, a dependable and charismatic man, if you can overlook his occasional childishness. The era the king is reborn into is much more archaic. After observing his surroundings for weeks, the king finally comes to the conclusion that he's learned everything this world has to offer. But that's when he finds out he's wrong. Later, he discovers that this world has magic when his mother uses healing magic to treat a wound inflicted by his father's mischief. It's then that the king realizes there's so much more to this world than he ever imagined. And if he has to be brutally honest, he actually knows nothing about it. Time passes, and once the king is able to crawl, he often sneaks out of his crib to read books and expand his knowledge about this world. Ever since he discovered this place, he's been sneaking out every night to learn more about it. He's found that the world he's been born into is made up of three major kingdoms. Eleanor, the elven kingdom deep in the forest. Darv, the vast underground kingdom and home of the dwarves. And Sapin, the human kingdom, which is also the most populated region. Both this world and his previous one share a monarchy system. But rulership here is passed down, not earned, which basically means that this world is vastly underdeveloped compared to his old one. He realizes the reason for the lack of technological advancement is the presence of magic in this world. He's been studying the fundamentals of magic ever since. In his old world, there was a life force called Ki, which practitioners used to strengthen their bodies and weapons through rigorous training. But this world has a similar force called mana. However, unlike Ki, which exists only inside a person, mana is present all around them. The power to control mana is largely genetic. Roughly 1 in 100 children possesses it, and it can be used in various ways. The two most common methods are augmenting and conjuring. Augmenters enhance their bodies with mana, allowing them to possess incredible strength, defense, and agility. However, their weakness lies in their limited range. On the other hand, conjurers emit mana into the outside world, bending their surroundings to their will. But to cast a spell, they must supplement their own mana core with mana from the environment. Interestingly, his mother is what they call a deviant, more specifically, an emitter. Deviants are rare types of mages with unique abilities, and emitters, like his mother, specialize in restorative mana. According to the book he read, a mage's first awakening happens between early adolescence and the late teenage years, when their mana core manifests. The concept of a mana core sounded uncannily similar to the Chi Center from his previous life. In his old world, children were taught to meditate and sense the fragments of chi scattered inside their bodies, gathering them into a single place to form a chi center. But when our little king decides to try this technique himself, to his surprise, he nails it on his first attempt, though his mother interrupts him before he can do anything significant. Time rolls on and 2 years fly by. Yet Alice feels like she hasn't fully figured out her little boy. She's learning about him slowly, piece by piece. She's named him Arthur, and he's the most precious and adorable thing in her life. One day she notices her husband teaching their little one how to swing a stick and fight, which sets her temper flaring because their baby can barely crawl. Alice loves documenting everything, keeping a daily diary, and moments like these never fail to put a smile on her face. She's also noticed that Arthur absolutely loves visiting the small merchant strip in central Ashbur. So instead of shopping for groceries once or twice a week, she's taken to going downtown every other day. Of course, she tells herself she's not spoiling him by doing this. It's all for educational purposes, since Arthur loves learning and seeing new things, and the fresh food she can bring home daily is just a bonus. Watching Arthur grow up so quickly, she sometimes wonders what he'll be like when he's older. With Ray as his father, she's sure he'll have an interest in becoming an adventurer, but she can't help worrying. She only hopes he fares better than the naive young teens dreaming of making it big as adventurers. Now, if only she could do something about his perpetual habit of sneaking into the study. It's even tempted her to move his crib into the study room, though that's a decision for another day. So far, this is the overview of what Alice has learned about her son over the past 2 years. One day, as Arthur peers through the window, he spots his father preparing to perform some magic. Reynolds closes his eyes in order to concentrate. The intensity of his concentration leaves Arthur brimming with curiosity, eager to see what kind of magic his father will perform. Suddenly, the pebbles on the ground began to lift. As his father reaches the peak of his enchantment, the debris floats only a few meters into the sky. Arthur is left utterly disappointed seeing this. While Reynolds looks quite pleased with his achievement, Arthur feels equally unimpressed. Watching his father take 3 minutes of utmost focus just to lift some pebbles a few feet is just ridiculous. He can't help but think doing it physically would have been easier. Just then, Alice joins him by the window. When she glances outside, her expression shifts to mild annoyance as she notices her husband has ruined the front yard again. So far, Arthur has learned that his father is an augmenter, which only deepens his curiosity about himself. He wonders what will he be when he awakens his mana core. After watching his father practice for a while, Arthur decides to retreat. As he tries to climb off the bench, he stumbles and struggles to get down. His eyes are half closed from focusing too hard, but Alice misinterprets this, thinking he's getting sleepy. She scoops him up, deciding it's time for his nap. But the poor boy quickly claps his tiny hands together and earnestly requests his mother to let him study instead. The innocence radiating from him is overwhelming, leaving Alice with no choice but to give in to his request. Arthur sits down with a book larger than himself spread open in front of him. Suddenly, a crashing noise echoes outside. Alice fears her clumsy husband might have knocked down yet another tree. She hurries out to investigate, leaving Arthur with a golden opportunity to practice his mana core formation. You see, aside from accumulating knowledge about this world, Arthur's greatest accomplishment so far has been his progress in forming his mana core. Over the past 2 years, he's painstakingly moved tens of thousands of tiny fragments of mana within his body, gathering them near his solar plexus. Arthur understands why it typically takes until adolescence for a mana core to form naturally. The fragments move agonizingly slowly toward the center, making it an arduous task for both the body and mind. But our boy's relentless efforts haven't gone to waste. He's almost there, and just one last piece remains. As soon as he places that final fragment, an explosion erupts inside the house, obliterating the entire structure in one powerful blast. Outside, Reynolds instinctively shields Alice, wrapping her in his arms to protect her from the searing heat and debris. When the dust finally settles, the devastated couple turns to find their home in ruins. Alice is beside herself with shock and grief as they rush toward the wreckage to check on their son. Reynolds frantically pushes aside debris, but when he notices his son, his worry quickly turns to shock and then to amazement. There, amidst the destruction, their son floats casually in the air as if nothing had happened. Arthur looks completely unfazed, his tiny body surrounded by a faint glow of mana. After forming his mana core, the little one finally drops down onto his feet, and he can finally feel the presence of the mana core inside him. He's already starting to enjoy the sensation of having a mana core inside, and even the trees around him seem greener. But then he realizes his house has been destroyed, and he has no idea who or what caused the damage. 5 years pass since that accident. Along with his mother teaching him how to read and write, Arthur has also been learning the basics of mana manipulation and augmentation. At first, since his body was too small for sparring, they focused on basic body workouts. Not long ago, his father decided it was finally time for Arthur to practice with the wooden sword he'd received for his 3rd birthday. Reynolds takes him outside to train, and as Arthur stands there with his newly acquired wooden sword, his father holds up a tree branch and tells him to match the flow of mana with his breathing. Just like your heart or lungs, your mana core is just another organ, his father explains. But Arthur doesn't think these abstract and vague instructions are going to teach anything to someone who is just literally 4 years old. Arthur takes his stance and exchanges a few playful blows with his father. The sparring drags on, with Reynolds clearly enjoying himself. But Arthur grows increasingly frustrated. Our boy knows that his father would not let him go until he accomplishes something noteworthy. With no other choice, he gathers his courage and swings his wooden sword hard enough to break the stick his father is holding. After this significant move, he immediately expresses his desire to return to his studies. Once our boy gets back to his studies about magic, we learn that in this world, strength is measured by the color of a person's mana core. Mana cores start off black, tainted by impurities like blood and other particles within the body. Over time, as these impurities are filtered out, the core's color changes, becoming purer and more powerful. The progression moves from black to red, orange, yellow, silver, and finally white. Each stage is divided into 3 shades, dark, solid, and light, with lighter shades signifying greater purity and strength. As our boy was deep in concentration, his mother interrupts him by urging him to come in for dinner. As they sit around eating, Arthur feels a growing irritation at the constant interruptions to his studies. Reynolds begins talking about finding a proper mentor for Arthur to further develop his skills. Alice immediately objects, pointing out that Arthur is only 4 years old and far too young for such a step. Reynolds counters that their son shows remarkable potential in mana manipulation, even at his young age, and he doesn't want to hold him back. Alice, however, stands her ground. She insists that she will not send her child off to some distant city. Reynolds reassures her by explaining that it isn't just any city, and promises that his trusted friend will personally take care of Arthur. Arthur tunes out most of the conversation, finding his parents back and forth exhausting. They suddenly turn to him and want his opinion on the matter. His father asks if he has any interest in leaving for the big city to study under a real teacher. My guy can't help but feel unsettled that his father is literally asking the opinion of someone who's only 4 years old. Anyhow, he plays the part of being a kid and meekly asks if his parents can't just go with him together. A sudden silence falls over everyone, but soon they burst into chuckles. Turns out this gullible couple hadn't even thought about the possibility of going with their kid as well. With that settled, his father makes the final call that they're all heading to Zero City together. The day finally arrives for them to leave their home, and they're not traveling alone. A party of adventurers will be tagging along with them on the journey. His father greets one of the adventurers and introduces his son to them. The little one quickly bows his head in respect, and expresses his gratitude for their help in accompanying them to Xyrus. This adventurer really likes the kid's mannerisms and is already fond of him. His name is Crench, an augmenter, and his specialty is the spear. Then there's Angela Rose, a conjurer with a focus on wind magic. She's got big hooters and stands out among the group. Next up is Durden Walker, also a conjurer, but his specialty is earth magic. There's also Jasmine Flameworth, an augmenter who specializes in dual daggers. Among all the adventurers, she's the most passive. Without saying much, she quietly walks towards the carriage they're about to ride in. Lastly, there's Helen Shard, another augmenter with a specialty in magic archery. Now that everyone's acquainted, Reynolds decides it's time to move on. They load the carriages with their things, and the journey begins. The time has finally come for Arthur to explore a world beyond the little village he knew. As their journey continues, dawn breaks, and so do the monsters. The adventurers quickly take care of them, and they set up camp deep in the forest to spend the night. As everyone enjoys the bonfire, Arthur seems a little dejected, feeling the weight of this mundane journey. Helen Shard then turns to our boy and sits beside him to catch up. She's quite curious to learn more about him after hearing his father constantly praise him as a great magician throughout the journey. Meanwhile, Crench notices the two talking and decides he's going to test Reynolds' son for himself. Without much warning, he grabs the little one off the ground and proposes a quick duel. When Arthur finds himself facing off against Crench, he is unsure if he's even supposed to fight an adventurer like this. His pleading eyes dart toward his father, hoping for a way out. But his father only grins and starts egging him to win, feeling utterly hopeless. Arthur can't believe how his father is literally useless in moments like these. Anyhow, my guy takes his stance, tapping into the experiences of his previous life. With a firm grip on his sword, he launches himself at Crench. Crench, on the other hand, stays steady, ready to dodge the incoming attack. But little does he know, our boy vanishes right before his eyes and reappears directly behind this bastard's back. My guy steadies his tiny body and channels some magic into his sword. Without wasting a moment, he quickly swings at Crench, but Crench dodges the attack with ease and retaliates with a slash of his own. The little guy ducks just in time, letting the stick zip past over his head. He takes advantage of the brief opening, launching himself straight into Crench's ribs and knocking the big guy to the ground. Crench isn't one to go down easily, though. He quickly swings his leg to trip the kid up, but my guy ducks down once again, narrowly avoiding it. Although he dodged the first onslaught, he's not sure if he can handle the next move Crench is already preparing. Sure enough, as soon as Crench's stick connects with him, the impact sends our boy flying. He lands a few feet away, his back aching like hell. Durden Walker gives Crench a little slap on the neck for going overboard with the kid. Crench, on the other hand, is absolutely awestruck by the display of skill he just witnessed in Arthur. He can't understand how his father claims he hasn't taught him anything, but as usual, the father insists he hasn't taught his son a thing. The doting mother quickly starts healing Arthur while scolding him because she does not like the idea that he had been studying fighting all this time. Arthur tries to brush it off, claiming he just picked up a few moves by watching his father and reading books, but Crench isn't convinced. He's sure those moves couldn't have been learned just from books, and he's eager to learn the techniques Arthur just pulled off. Eventually, Arthur explains how to perform the acrobatic moves he pulled off, but whenever the others try, they fail miserably. Several days pass since they began their journey to Xyrus City. During this time, Arthur's birthday also passed, and he received gifts, not only because it was his birthday, but also for the efforts he put into teaching them those techniques. Surprisingly, the one who gave him a gift was none other than the usually passive Jasmine Flameworth. Meanwhile, the training with Adam, Helen, and his father continued with decent progress. To Arthur's surprise, Jasmine had already succeeded in learning a few techniques. It still amazes him how quickly she managed to grasp his instructions, especially when it came to learning faint step. After some fun near a picturesque waterfall, the group decided to press on with their journey. Eventually, they arrived at a desolate and barren landscape, a stark contrast to the lush greenery they had left behind. As the group shared some light-hearted banter, they joked about Arthur's father being a trouble magnet, who always managed to drag everyone into some kind of mess. Meanwhile, Arthur tries to focus on reading a book, but finds it nearly impossible to concentrate. The cause of his distress is Jasmine's stares, who just can't stop staring at him for quite a while now. Suddenly, their journey is interrupted by bandits. While everyone gets ready to face them, the looters outside launch a barrage of arrows. Thankfully, Angela Rose's wind magic stops most of them in their tracks, scattering the projectiles harmlessly. The adventurers quickly exude an intense aura as they grab their respective weapons, preparing for the fight. Helen immediately takes her stance, drawing and readying an arrow, but judging by the sheer number of bandits swarming over the hills, it's clear her single arrow won't be enough to deal with the danger. There are a shitload of bandits surrounding them, completely cornering the group from all directions. Finally, we get a glimpse of this disgusting guy who seems to be the leader of the bandit gang. The bastard wastes no time in barking orders at his goons to leave the women and the kid alive. He does not want any damage inflicted on the two he mentioned. After all, damaged goods wouldn't sell for much. This is the pivotal moment when Arthur realizes that this world isn't so different from the one he left behind. Crime exists here too, and it's just as cruel. Either way, my guy is ready to face the challenge ahead. He grabs his dagger tightly, preparing himself for what's to come. But before he can act, his mother instinctively pulls him into a warm hug, whispering that there's no need to worry because she's here. The bandits release another volley of arrows, but Durden Walker quickly conjures a wall of stone using his earth magic and blocks most of the attack. However, the bandits begin to overwhelm them, charging from every direction. A few arrows manage to slip past the stone wall, heading straight for Arthur and his mother. Thankfully, Angela Rose saves the day by using her wind magic to deflect the incoming projectiles. The leader of the bandit gang finally makes his move and comes down the hill to confront the party. Helen Shard isn't about to let that happen without a fight. She fires her arrows, managing to take down two of the goons. But the leader deflects her shots with ease. Meanwhile, Reynolds is going all out, cutting down these bastards left and right. With a single dash, he takes out a whole bunch of them in one fell swoop. One sneaky bastard tries to ambush Reynolds from behind, but Helen spots it just in time and drills him with a perfectly aimed arrow. The battle rages on, and we catch a glimpse of Crench in action as well. He's not holding back either. When a fat tries to sneak up on him, Crench dodges the attack right away and counters with a series of devastating stabs. We also notice how fierce Jasmine is with her dual daggers. She's brutalizing these bastards, slashing their necks or gouging their eyes out without hesitation. One creepy bastard in the background cracks a whip, aiming it directly at Jasmine. But instead of hitting her, the whip slices through one of his own men's legs. The blow is fast and devastating, and Jasmine barely avoids it. The bastard is undeterred and cracks his whip again. The speed at which he swings it is insane, but Jasmine matches the pace with her impressive acrobatics, dodging and weaving through his attacks. While she avoids some of the major blows, she still ends up with some nasty grazes that just goes on to show that even she's not invincible. Meanwhile, Arthur watches the battle happen in between Jasmine and the whip-wielding bastard. He takes note of how Jasmine is at a significant disadvantage against her opponent's range attacks, and he realizes he needs to figure out a way to help her. But as much as he wants to assist, he's not sure if he even stands a chance against an adult augmenter with his tiny body. Suddenly, someone crashes into their carriage, and unfortunately it's Reynolds, and he's severely injured, clearly overpowered by his opponent. And that opponent is none other than the boss of the bandits. Arthur quickly tells his mother to heal Reynolds, but Alice is too devastated by everything happening around her. She's crying uncontrollably instead of using her magic. Reynolds flashes a reassuring smile at her and says his injuries aren't life-threatening, so she doesn't need to worry. The proud father then addresses his son, claiming that he can fend off the leader, but not while worrying about protecting his family. He urges Alice and Arthur to head back down the trail they came from and not stop running, but Arthur refuses. He declares he can fight too. Reynolds gives him a proud pat on the head for his bravery. He acknowledges Arthur's bravery, but reminds him that his real duty is to protect his mother and the baby she's carrying. Before Reynolds can say more, Arthur swears on his life that he'll protect his mother. His father nods and urges him to hurry, pointing out the enemy have got 4 mages backing them up. The bandit leader catches on to their plan and orders his men to capture the healer. Without hesitation, Arthur grabs his mother's hand and starts running, determined to get her. Suddenly, one bastard lunges at the duo, but his path is quickly blocked by Crench, who jumps in to hold down the enemy, giving the mother and son enough time to escape. Another bastard tries to sneakily hit the duo with an arrow. However, it doesn't take Arthur long to sense the arrow coming. He quickly tries to knock it down with his wooden sword. The arrow, though, is so powerful that it even cracks the sword in 2 pieces. The archer is in awe, stunned to see how a kid blocked his mighty arrow. But while he's distracted, his head is drilled by an arrow unleashed by Heron, who quickly tells Arthur to run. As the little one runs with his mother, he notices something peculiar. As far as he remembers, there were supposed to be 4 mages, but he can't seem to spot the 4th one. He even tries counting them. One is engaged with Crench, another with Durden Walker, and the 3rd with Jasmine. That's when Arthur notices the 4th guy standing atop the hill, conjuring up a giant ball of mana. The bastard quickly throws that ball of energy at the mother and son. Arthur isn't sure what to do in this critical moment. Even if he uses mana to block it, his mother won't be fast enough to avoid it. In a split-second decision, he slams his little feet on the ground, pushes his mother out of harm's way, and through that hazy ball of mana he throws his dagger with godly speed. The dagger strikes the bastard's leg immediately. The mana ball, however, brutally wounds Arthur, sending him flying toward the cliff's edge. As he begins to fall, he drags the mage down with him. The dagger Arthur threw was attached to a mana string, which is helping him to pull the mage along, but just before they completely fall, the mage clings to the cliff's edge. Unfortunately, the part of the cliff he holds on to crumbles under the weight, and both of them begin to plummet into the abyss. Durden Walker notices the little one falling to his death, so he conjures a massive hand made of earth to save him. But it seems Durden is already too late. Tears well up in Arthur's eyes as he continues to descend. What breaks his heart isn't just the fall, it's the thought that his dream of becoming a big brother is slipping away from his grasp. The scene transitions to the chamber of a man known as Marlorn. King Gray, who is our boy Arthur, arrives in the chamber to meet this old man. Marlorn expresses how grateful he is for being part of the council, but also admits that despite this rewarding position, he sometimes feels envious of the fame and glory kings receive after their victories. Eventually, Marlon questions the purpose of King Gray's unexpected visit, wondering what brought him here to meet an old man like himself. That's when Gray silently pulls out a war medal he earned after his latest victory, and after placing it on the table, he begins to leave, declaring that he is retiring. In this world plagued by problems like declining birth rates and limited resources, wars had been replaced by duels and armies by kings. Gray was one of those kings, a key figure who fought to protect his territory as its representative. But Gray's decision to step down wasn't born out of exhaustion or a lack of skill. He hadn't dedicated his life to becoming the strongest or basking in endless glory. What truly broke him was the emptiness, the absence of people he could cherish. An orphan with everyone he once loved is gone. Now reborn as Arthur in a new life, he carries a profound yearning. He would give up everything he has in this life for just one chance to return to Ashbur and see them all again. A while later, Arthur begins to open his eyes. He has no clue where he is or why he's even alive, for that matter. Nearby, he notices the corpse of the mage lying lifeless. The sight of that messed up, twisted corpse instantly makes him gag. Still, as he lays beneath the vast sky, completely worn out, a leaf drifts down and lands on his face, jolting him awake. He spots a water pouch and a bag of food lying on the ground nearby. With the last bit of strength he has, Arthur crawls toward them. He grabs the food and devours whatever it is, making sure to gulp down enough water, too. After the meal, he collapses back onto the ground, utterly exhausted. A while later, he opens his eyes again and tries to get back up, but his legs give out, and he falls right back down. Despite that, he musters every ounce of strength left in him, finally pushing himself to stand. The first thing he does is pull the dagger out of the mage's dead body. When he looks up, he finally notices just how tall the cliff is from where he fell. It's unfathomable that he survived such a drop, but he doesn't have time to dwell on it, so he begins to walk his lonely path. Suddenly, he hears a voice calling out to him. The first thought that pops into his mind is that the dead mage might be trying to tell him something. The voice echoes again, this time asking about the condition of his body. The poor kid musters up his courage and nervously tries to poke the mage's dead body to check if it's alive, but the voice quickly assures him that this corpse won't be reanimating, so there's nothing to worry about. Arthur heaves a sigh of relief at this unexpected reassurance. However, his guard immediately goes back up and he questions the mysterious voice, asking if it was the one who saved him from that brutal fall. The voice doesn't hesitate to confirm that it indeed saved him. But when Arthur presses for its identity, the voice cryptically claims that he'll learn about it soon enough. Arthur doesn't like the way this mysterious voice is talking, and makes it very clear he isn't buying a single word of it. The voice, however, calmly reminds him that it's the only one capable of getting him home from this place. The mention of home quickly jogs Arthur's memory, and he remembers the parents he left behind, and of course the sibling growing in his mother's belly. He has no idea if they made it to Zira safely, or if they're even all right. Since there are so many questions he wants answers of, he gets humbled real quick, and politely addresses this mysterious being as Mr. Voice, and asks if he could trouble it for directions to get out of this place. The voice chuckles, amused at how this once arrogant kid has quickly become humble. It admits to liking Arthur for his quick wit, but can't help pointing out its annoyance at being called Mr. when in fact it's a lady. Still, since Arthur's words were polite enough, the voice decides to guide him. Soon after, Arthur's mind is overwhelmed by this sudden shock, and he begins to see everything around him, even places far off in the distance. With this epiphany, Arthur starts making his way out of the woods. His body is recovering gradually, leaving him with only a few faint aches and pains by the afternoon. but he is still trying to figure out what magic she used to save him. How did she know he was falling, and why did she only save him? The more Arthur tries to come up with plausible explanations, the more questions he seems to end up with. Suddenly, Arthur's ears pick up the sweet sound of water flowing. He climbs up a giant rock, blocking his path, and literally dives into the river without a second thought. As he enjoys the refreshing moment, the mysterious lady calls out to him for how carefree he seems. She also questions the size of his manhood, expressing disappointment over such a small gun. Arthur feels humiliated and quickly pulls his clothes back on. Before continuing his journey, he makes sure to fill his water pouch and eat enough to keep his strength up. Since he fell off the mountain toward the east, he must be near the elves' domain, but he doesn't see any of the fog that Forest Elsher is known for. His fears about traveling through the beast glades are quelled by the fact that only small animals seem to be present. Although he's surprised he hasn't seen any mana beasts, given how rich the area is in mana. He would love to stay and absorb some mana, but he knows he can't linger. He has no time to waste. Especially, it's more important to get back to his parents. With his mother pregnant, the stress of his potential death could endanger the baby inside her. And if they are still alive, he needs to be there for them. After walking long enough, Arthur finally arrives at the place where the mysterious lady resides. For a moment, he mistakes her for a cluster of rocks and feels relieved to have finally found her. But the lady quickly reminds him that she isn't some sentient pile of rocks, and tells him that if he wants to meet her, he'll have to head into the crevice. Without hesitation, Arthur begins making his way inside this tunnel, which has this arcane, faint glow emanating. He swallows his fear and descends further into the passage. As he walks, he suddenly stumbles and falls into an abyss, glowing with arcane blue energy, eventually landing hard on solid ground. The crash is brutal, and his jaw aches like hell. Still, Arthur forces himself to get up, but no sooner does he stand than he collapses again. Before him stands a terrifying monster. So imposing it makes him trip over himself in fear. But, as it turns out, this monster is none other than the mysterious lady who had been talking to him all along. As she slowly walks toward him, Arthur panics beyond belief, his jaw hanging wide open in sheer terror. The girl suggests he shut his mouth unless he wants bugs to crawl into it. She then extends her massive hand toward him, which freaks him out a little. Calmly, she explains that it will take her some time to open a dimensional rift strong enough to transport him home. Until then, she suggests he enjoy the nourishment provided by the mysterious plants around them. Arthur bows his head and expresses his gratitude before walking toward the strange glowing fruits nearby. They're so shiny that he can literally see his sad reflection in. He feels sorrow as the fruits remind him of the time he spent eating with his family. As he drifts into these thoughts, the lady monster suddenly startles him from behind. The sudden scare causes Arthur to unintentionally crush the delicate fruit in his hand, splattering its juice all over his face. Later, the both of them settle down to chow down the fruits, and while eating, Arthur finally decides it's time for this creature to introduce herself. The monster promptly reveals her name as Sylvia. With names exchanged, Arthur's initial fear of Sylvia's appearance slowly fades, and he begins asking all the questions that had been on his mind since waking up from the fall. Where was this place? Why was she here all alone? Where did she come from? How did she get that wound? And most importantly, why did she save him? Sylvia starts by answering his first question, explaining that this place is a narrow zone resting between the beast glades and the forest of Elsher. No one knows about this area because she has been warding off anyone who comes near. Besides, not that many ever come here in the first place, so Arthur is basically the first person to enter her domain. Feeling more at ease with her now, Arthur gives her permission to call him Art, just as his family does. Sylvia acknowledges this with a nod and moves on to his second question. She explains that she is here alone because she has no one left to be with. She has many enemies who desperately want something she possesses. Her last battle with those foes before she managed to escape left her with the wound on her chest. As for why she decided to save Arthur, she admits she was moved by his courage and the sacrifice he made. Or perhaps it was simply that she had grown lonely and wanted someone to talk to. Whatever the case, she herself isn't entirely sure why she saved him in the first place. She then apologizes, explaining that she has to excuse herself for the night because her wound is festering and she needs to be in good condition to work on the dimensional rift tomorrow. Arthur thanks her politely and wishes her good night. As the imposing figure in dark armor walks away, he can't help but think about how lonely she appears. Before leaving, Sylvia shares one final piece of information with him. While her sight cannot reach the exact location of his family and friends, she assures him that they are all safe. This news leaves Arthur momentarily speechless, but then he feels overwhelmed with emotion, knowing they are safe. Tears of happiness flow as he cracks a smile and thanks her for giving him the good news he had been desperately craving. As time passed, Sylvia and Arthur spent hours talking about all sorts of things whenever she wasn't preparing the portal. Those hours bled into days. This file is longer than 30 minutes. Go unlimited at turboscribe.ai to transcribe files up to 10 hours long.